My name is Rachel Wilson, and I'm 68 years old. When my husband died, I thought moving in with my daughter Amanda would help heal my broken heart. I never imagined she'd tell me I was an extra mouth to feed before kicking me out of her apartment. What she and her husband Jake didn't know was that beneath my grief hid a financially savvy woman. 3 months after they threw me to the curb, I bought their entire apartment building and tripled their rent. If you're watching this video, let me know where you're tuning in from and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me tell you how I turned family betrayal into sweet justice. After 40 years of shaping young minds as an elementary school teacher, I retired just 3 years ago. My beloved husband William and I had been married for 43 wonderful years when a sudden heart attack took him from me 18 months ago. We had built a modest but comfortable life together in our 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb of Indianapolis. William had worked as an accountant at the same firm for 35 years, and together we had always been careful with our finances. What most people didn't know, including our daughter Amanda, was just how careful we'd been. William had an obsession with financial security that served us well. We lived below our means, invested regularly, and slowly built a portfolio of rental properties over the decades. William also had a substantial life insurance policy that paid out $2.5 million upon his death. Amanda knew about the policy, but assumed it was worth perhaps a tenth of that amount. After William died, our house felt impossibly empty. I'd wake up reaching for him only to find cold sheets beside me. The silence was deafening. I'd wander from room to room surrounded by memories, but finding no comfort in them. The garden William had lovingly tended began to wither, much like my spirit. Depression crept in like an unwelcome guest that refused to leave. I struggled to find purpose in my days. The house that had once felt just right for our family now seemed to mock me with its space and maintenance needs. The roof needed replacing, the water heater was temperamental, and the yard work was becoming too much for me to handle alone. I called Amanda more frequently during this time, seeking some connection to combat the loneliness. During one of these calls, she suggested I sell the house and move in with her family. "Mom, it doesn't make sense for you to rattle around in that big house all alone," she said. "We have the spare bedroom, and Lily would love having her grandmother around." The offer seemed genuine and loving. Amanda had always been my only child, born when I was 30 after years of trying. We'd always been close, though she'd grown more independent after marrying Jake 6 years ago. Their daughter, Lily, my only grandchild, was 8 years old and the light of my life. The decision to sell my house wasn't easy. Each room held precious memories. The living room, where William and I had spent countless evenings reading together. The kitchen, where we'd dance while cooking Sunday dinners. The backyard, where we'd hosted summer barbecues with friends and family. Saying goodbye felt like losing William all over again. I spent weeks sorting through our possessions. Some items I kept for sentimental reasons, a few valuable pieces I put in storage, and the rest I donated to charity. The local women's shelter received most of our furniture, and I found comfort knowing it would help families starting over. The house sold quickly in the hot market, bringing in $450,000. I put most of it into secure investments, following the plan William and I had created years before. I kept this detail from Amanda, letting her assume I was living primarily on my teacher's pension and Social Security. Despite my grief, I felt a glimmer of excitement about this new chapter. Living with Amanda would give me a chance to be a daily part of Lily's life, something I'd always wanted. I pictured myself helping with homework, baking cookies together, and passing down family stories. I hoped that being surrounded by family would ease the ache of losing William. With a heart full of hope and a few suitcases containing my remaining possessions, I locked the door to my old life and headed toward what I thought would be my loving new home. Amanda welcomed me with a warm hug when I arrived at her modest 2-bedroom apartment. "Welcome home, Mom. she said, helping me with my bags. Lily bounced around excitedly, showing me the room they'd prepared and chattering about all the things we would do together. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of an older building in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but well-maintained enough. Amanda and Jake had converted their office into a bedroom for me. It was small, but had a comfortable twin bed, a dresser, and a small desk. They'd put fresh flowers on the nightstand and hung a few family photos on the wall, thoughtful touches that made me feel welcome. Those first few weeks were lovely. I fell into a natural rhythm with their household. I'd wake early, make coffee, and have quiet time before the others got up. Lily and I would walk to her school together, her small hand in mine, as she told me about her friends and favorite subjects. I'd spend the day tidying the apartment or running errands, then pick Lily up from school. We'd have special grandmother-granddaughter time before Amanda got home from her job at the bank, and Jake returned from the construction company where he worked as a project manager. I tried to make myself useful without overstepping. I cooked dinner most nights, prepared lunches, and kept the apartment spotless. I brought small gifts for everyone, nothing extravagant but thoughtful tokens. A model airplane kit for Jake, who had mentioned an interest in aviation once. A scarf in Amanda's favorite color. Books and art supplies for Lily. I also offered to contribute financially to the household expenses. "Amanda, I'd like to pay some rent or at least help with groceries," I said one evening while we washed dishes together. "Don't be silly, Mom," she replied, waving away my offer. "Your family, not a tenant. Just having your help around the house is enough." Looking back, I should have noticed the signs earlier. Jake was never quite warm toward me. He'd acknowledge my presence with a nod, but rarely engaged in conversation. When I'd serve dinner, he'd mutter a quick thanks without making eye contact. If I was watching television in the living room, he'd head to the bedroom instead. About a month into my stay, I overheard them arguing in their bedroom late one night. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but their voices carried through the thin walls. "She's always here, Jake. What did you expect?" Amanda sounded defensive. "I didn't think she'd be in the way all the time," he replied, his voice sharp. "Can't she go out sometimes? Join a senior center or something? She's my mother, not some random old lady we took in." "Yeah, well, your mother is cramping our style. I can't even relax in my own home anymore." Amanda's response was too quiet to hear, but the tension was palpable the next morning. Jake barely acknowledged me before leaving for work, and Amanda seemed distracted, avoiding my eyes. I tried even harder after that. I made Jake's favorite meals, asked about his work, and made sure to give them plenty of privacy. I'd take long walks in the afternoon, or read in my room so they could have the living room to themselves. I started taking Lily to the library or park after school to give Amanda and Jake some time alone when they got home. Despite my efforts, the atmosphere grew increasingly strained. Amanda became more distant, often checking her phone instead of engaging in conversation. Jake's rudeness became more overt. He'd sigh loudly when I spoke at dinner or mutter under his breath when I suggested weekend activities. They started excluding me from family plans. I'd wake up to find they had gone to the movies or to visit friends without even telling me. "We didn't want to bother you," Amanda would say dismissively when they returned. I felt like a houseguest who had overstayed her welcome, not a beloved mother and grandmother. Only Lily remained consistently affectionate, crawling into my lap for stories, and proudly showing me her schoolwork. But even she began to be influenced by her parents' attitudes. "Daddy says we need to be quiet because Grandma needs extra rest," she told me one afternoon when I suggested we play a game. Another time, she asked, "Mommy said you're staying with us because you're poor now. Are you poor, Grandma?" That question stung particularly hard. I had never discussed my finances with Amanda in detail, but I certainly wasn't destitute. I'd simply let her believe I was living modestly on my pension, because that's what William and I had always done. We never flaunted our wealth or spoiled our daughter with extravagance. We believed in working hard and living simply. Perhaps that had backfired, as Amanda now saw me as a financial burden rather than a financially stable parent. As the weeks turned into months, I became increasingly aware that I wasn't truly welcome in their home. The warmth had faded, replaced by cool tolerance. I was an intruder in their space, an unwanted presence they had to endure. The realization broke my heart, but I tried to hold on to hope that things would improve. I couldn't have imagined how much worse they would get. Amanda's 35th birthday arrived on a crisp fall day. I wanted to make it special to perhaps rekindle the warmth that had dissipated in our relationship. I spent the afternoon preparing her favorite meal pot roast with roasted vegetables, homemade rolls, and a chocolate layer cake for dessert. The same meal I'd made for her birthdays throughout her childhood. I set the table with care, using the good dishes they kept for special occasions. I even bought a small bouquet of fresh flowers for the centerpiece. Lily helped me hang streamers and blow up balloons after school, giggling as we decorated the apartment. "Mommy's gonna love this," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. When Amanda arrived home from work, her expression was one of genuine surprise. For a moment, I glimpsed my daughter again, not the distant woman she'd become in recent weeks. "Mom, you didn't have to go to all this trouble," she said, but I could tell she was touched. "It's no trouble to celebrate my only daughter," I replied, hugging her. The moment was shattered when Jake walked through the door 20 minutes later, carrying bags of takeout food from an expensive steakhouse. "Surprise, babe," he announced, then stopped short when he saw the table set with my home-cooked meal. "What's all this?" "Mom made dinner for my birthday," Amanda explained, her voice suddenly tight with tension. Jake frowned, placing the takeout bags on the counter with a thud. "I texted you I was bringing dinner. Didn't you get it?" "I forgot to tell Mom," Amanda said quickly, not meeting my eyes. The air in the room grew heavy with awkwardness. Lily looked between us adults, sensing the tension but not understanding it. "Well," Jake said with a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Now we have options." We ended up eating both meals, though most of my carefully prepared food went untouched, as Amanda and Jake focused on the steakhouse offerings. The conversation was stilted with long silences broken only by Lily's innocent chatter. As we ate, Jake began making comments about finances, directing them at Amanda, but clearly meant for me to hear. "The property taxes went up again," he said between bites of steak. "And the car insurance is due next week." "We'll manage," Amanda replied, shooting him a warning glance. "Sure, we always do. Just means tighter belts all around." He emphasized the all while looking pointedly at me. I tried to ignore the implication, focusing instead on making Lily smile. But Jake was just getting started. "You know, with inflation, the way it is, feeding a family gets more expensive every month," he continued. "Every extra mouth makes a difference." Amanda kicked him under the table. I could tell by his slight jerk, but he pressed on. "Amanda, did you see how much the grocery bill was last week for 4 people instead of 3? I put down my fork, my appetite gone. "Jake, if this is about money, I'd be happy to contribute to the household expenses. I've offered before." "It's not just about money," he snapped, dropping all pretense. "It's about space and privacy and having our life back." "Jake, not now," Amanda hissed, glancing at Lily, who was watching wide-eyed. "If not now, when?" His voice rose as months of resentment boiled over. "Your mother has been here for months, and we haven't had a moment to ourselves. Our bills are higher, our space is cramped, and I'm tired of tiptoeing around in my own home." "I don't think this is appropriate dinner conversation," I said quietly, my heart pounding painfully in my chest. "See, that's exactly what I mean," Jake exploded, slamming his hand on the table and making us all jump. "I can't even speak my mind in my own home. I'm sorry, Amanda, but I can't do this anymore. Your mother needs to find her own place. I'm done having an extra mouth to feed, and another body taking up space in our apartment. "Jake!" Amanda gasped, but there was no real outrage in her voice, only embarrassment at his bluntness. "Lily, go to your room, honey," I said gently, seeing the tears welling in my granddaughter's eyes. "But Grandma," she protested. "Now, Lily," Jake ordered, and she fled, shooting me a sympathetic glance over her shoulder. I sat in stunned silence as Jake continued his tirade, listing all the ways my presence had inconvenienced them. The extra water usage, the electricity bill, the lack of privacy, the burden of consideration. With each accusation, I felt myself shrinking, becoming smaller and more insignificant in the space I'd thought was my new home. I looked to Amanda, waiting for her to defend me, to remind her husband that I was her mother, that I had welcomed them into my home countless times over the years without complaint. But she sat silently, staring at her plate. "Amanda," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is this how you feel too?" She raised her eyes to mine, and I saw the truth there before she spoke. "Mom, we love you, but this arrangement isn't working. We thought it would be temporary, just until you got back on your feet after Dad died." "You never mentioned temporary when you invited me," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "We didn't think we needed to," Jake interjected. "It's common sense. Parents don't move in with their kids permanently unless there's no other option." The words hit me like physical blows. All this time, I'd thought I was wanted, needed, even helping with Lily and the household. But I'd just been a burden they were tolerating until they could decently get rid of me. "I see," I said, standing up slowly. My legs felt weak, and my chest ached with the effort of holding back tears. "If you'll excuse me." I walked with as much dignity as I could muster to my small bedroom, closed the door quietly, and finally let the tears come. Silent sobs racked my body as I curled up on the twin bed, feeling more alone than I had even in the empty house after William died. Through the thin walls, I could hear them talking, their voices low, but clear enough. "You didn't have to be so harsh," Amanda was saying. "Someone had to say it," Jake replied, unapologetic. "You've been complaining about it for weeks but wouldn't do anything." "I just didn't know how to tell her. She's my mother, Jake." "Well, now it's out there. She needs to find her own place, Amanda. I want our life back." I know. I'll talk to her tomorrow, help her look for an apartment she can afford on her pension." Their voices faded as they moved to their bedroom, but the damage was done. Not only had I been told I was unwelcome, but I'd discovered my own daughter had been complaining about my presence for weeks. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. I spent the night sleepless, cycling through grief shock, and eventually, as dawn broke, a slow burning anger. I had given Amanda everything a mother could give throughout her life. Love, support, education, time, attention. When she'd struggled in college, I'd driven 3 hours each way to help her study. When she'd broken up with her first serious boyfriend, I'd held her while she cried for days. When she'd wanted a lavish wedding, despite our modest means, William and I had taken out a loan to give her the day of her dreams. And this was my repayment: to be treated like an unwanted houseguest, to be called an extra mouth to feed, to be discarded when I became inconvenient. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the blinds, a resolve hardened within me. I would leave with my dignity intact. But I wouldn't forget this betrayal, and I certainly wouldn't let it stand without consequences. The morning after Jake's outburst, Amanda knocked softly on my door around 9 a.m. I had been awake for hours, having barely slept, but I'd stayed in my room to avoid them. "Mom, can I come in?" Her voice was tentative, almost childlike. "It's open," I replied, sitting up and smoothing my hair. I had already dressed and packed one suitcase, the physical action of folding clothes and organizing belongings having provided some small comfort during the long night. Amanda entered carrying a cup of coffee, which she offered to me like a peace offering. She looked tired, her eyes puffy, but whether from crying or lack of sleep, I couldn't tell. "Mom, about last night," she began, perching awkwardly on the edge of the desk chair. "Jake didn't mean to be so blunt. He's under a lot of pressure at work. The construction company is laying people off, and he's worried about his position." I accepted the coffee, but not the excuse. "I think Jake meant exactly what he said, Amanda." She sighed, running a hand through her unbrushed hair. "It's just been an adjustment having someone else in our space. We're not used to it." "You invited me here," I reminded her quietly. "You suggested I sell my house and move in." "I know, and I meant it at the time, but I didn't really think through the practical aspects." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "The thing is, Mom, this apartment is just too small for 4 people. Jake and I can barely afford it as it is, and with another adult here, the expenses have gone up more than we expected." "I've offered multiple times to contribute financially, Amanda. You always refused." "I know, but it's not just about money. It's about space and privacy, too." She looked around the small room that had been her home office. "We think it would be better for everyone if you found your own place. Something small and manageable on your pension." I took a slow sip of coffee, using the moment to compose myself. I could have revealed my true financial situation, then told her about the millions sitting in my investment accounts. But something stopped me. If Amanda only valued me when I was financially useful, was that really the relationship I wanted? "I understand," I said finally, my voice steady, despite the hurt coursing through me. "How long do I have to find a new place?" Relief flooded her face. She had clearly expected tears or arguments. "We thought maybe a few weeks, that should be enough time to find a senior apartment or something similar." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak further. Amanda lingered for a moment, perhaps waiting for me to break down or beg to stay. But when I remained silent, she stood awkwardly. "I'll help you look online for places," she offered, heading toward the door. "There are some nice senior communities not far from here." After she left, I sat motionless, the coffee growing cold in my hands. I had expected some show of remorse, some acknowledgement of the pain they'd caused. Instead, Amanda had treated the situation like a simple logistical problem to solve, as if discarding her mother was no more emotionally significant than rearranging furniture. Over the next few days, I began my apartment search, at least as far as Amanda knew. I spent hours at the local library telling her I was using their computers to look at rental listings. In reality, I was meeting with my financial advisor and researching investment opportunities. Meanwhile, tensions in the apartment grew. Jake made little effort to hide his impatience, making comments like, "Found anything yet?" whenever I returned from the library. Amanda tried to be more tactful, but I could sense her anxiety growing as days passed without me announcing a new living arrangement. 1 week into my search, Jake confronted me as I prepared dinner. "It's been 7 days," he said bluntly. "Surely you found something by now." "Apartment hunting takes time," I replied, continuing to chop vegetables. "Especially on a fixed income." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Look, Rachel, I know this is tough, but we need our space back. Amanda's been stressed out, Lily's confused, and frankly, I'm at my limit." "Jake, I'm doing my best," I said, keeping my voice level. "Finding affordable housing isn't easy." "Well, you need to try harder," he snapped. "We can't keep living like this. You've got 1 more week, then you need to be out, even if it's to a hotel temporarily." I looked up from my chopping, meeting his gaze directly. "You're giving me a deadline to leave your home." "Our home," he corrected, "which is too small and too expensive to support an extra person." "So, yes, 1 week." That night, Amanda didn't contradict her husband's ultimatum, merely saying, "Jake's just anxious to get back to normal, Mom. I'm sure you'll find something soon." Their callousness solidified my resolve. I spent the next few days pretending to intensify my apartment search while actually viewing luxury condos across town. I found one I loved, a 2-bedroom unit with a balcony overlooking the city park in a doorman building with a gym and community room. I made an all-cash offer and was approved immediately. The hardest part was saying goodbye to Lily. On my last morning in their apartment, she clung to me, tears streaming down her face. "Why can't you stay with us, Grandma?" she sobbed. "I don't want you to go." I held her close, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. "Sometimes grown-ups need their own spaces, sweetheart, but I'll still see you often." "Promise," she hiccuped, looking up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I promise," I said, though I suspected Amanda and Jake would make fulfilling that promise difficult. I pressed a small gift into her hands, a locket containing a tiny photo of us together. "Whenever you miss me, you can look at this and remember I love you." As Jake loaded my suitcases into a taxi, his relief was palpable. Amanda hugged me stiffly, murmuring, "I'll call you once you're settled." I nodded, not believing her for a moment. As the taxi pulled away, I caught a last glimpse of Lily waving frantically from the window, and my heart shattered all over again. The doorman at the Parkview Residences greeted me with a warm smile as I entered my new home. "Welcome, Ms. Wilson. Your furniture was delivered this morning as scheduled." "Thank you, George," I replied, still getting used to the luxury of having staff who knew my name and anticipated my needs. My new condo was everything their cramped apartment wasn't. Spacious and flooded with natural light, it featured hardwood floors, granite countertops, and floor-to-ceiling windows with breathtaking views of the city park below. The master bedroom suite included a walk-in closet larger than the room I'd occupied at Amanda's, and the second bedroom I'd set up as a combination guest room and office. The contrast between this lifestyle and the one I'd pretended to have couldn't have been starker. For the first time since leaving Amanda's, I allowed myself to feel not just the hurt of rejection, but also a simmering anger at the injustice of it all. I had been a good mother, a generous mother. I had never asked for anything in return except basic respect and affection. After settling in, I called my financial advisor, Martin, who had been handling my investments since William died. "Rachel, how are you enjoying your new place?" he asked after we exchanged pleasantries. "It's wonderful, Martin. But I didn't call about the condo. I want to discuss a new investment opportunity." "I'm all ears." "I'm interested in purchasing an apartment building," I said, getting straight to the point. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "That's a significant change from your usual investment strategy. Any particular reason?" "Let's just say I've developed a sudden interest in real estate management," I replied, not quite ready to reveal my true motivations. "Well, as it happens, I know of a property that might interest you. It's a 20-unit building in Riverside Heights. Solid construction, decent neighborhood, but the current owners and investment firm are looking to liquidate some assets, and it's underperforming in their portfolio." My heart raced. Riverside Heights was Amanda's neighborhood. "Do you happen to know the address?" When he told me, I had to sit down. It was Amanda's building. The very place they had evicted me from was now potentially for sale. "Is something wrong, Rachel?" Martin asked when I didn't immediately respond. "No, nothing's wrong," I said, regaining my composure. "In fact, everything might be exactly right. Tell me more about this property." Over the next hour, Martin filled me in on the details. The building was structurally sound but needed some updates. The current management company was lackluster at best, with tenants complaining about slow responses to maintenance requests. Most importantly, the units were rented below market value, meaning there was significant room for profit improvement. "And you said the current owners are motivated to sell?" "Very. They're looking to close quickly within 60 days, if possible." "Perfect," I said, a plan forming in my mind. "I'd like to make an offer, but there's a condition. I want to remain anonymous as the buyer. That's not uncommon in real estate investments, Martin assured me. We can create an LLC to purchase the property. Your name wouldn't appear on any documents the tenants would see. Excellent. Let's do that then. After hanging up, I walked to my balcony and looked out over the park, watching children play while their parents chatted on nearby benches. Families enjoying each other's company, demonstrating the kind of love and respect my own daughter had failed to show me. My next call was to my lawyer, Edward, who had helped with William's estate. I explained my plan to create an LLC for purchasing the apartment building. We'll need to move quickly, I told him, and discretion is key. I understand, Rachel. We can have the paperwork ready by tomorrow. What will you call the company? I thought for a moment, a small smile playing at my lips. New Beginnings Properties. With the legal structures in place, I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my time with Amanda. My former teaching colleague Susan and I resumed our weekly lunch dates. I joined a book club at the local library and signed up for water aerobics at the condo's pool. I even started volunteering at an elementary school near my new home, reading to children once a week. For the first time since William's death, I was living authentically again. No more pretending to be the helpless widow. No more walking on eggshells to avoid inconveniencing my daughter and her husband. No more suppressing my opinions and preferences to keep the peace. As I settled into my new life, I also kept close tabs on the apartment building purchase. Martin had been right about the owners being motivated to sell. They accepted my offer with minimal negotiation, and the due diligence process proceeded smoothly. During this time, I learned more about Amanda and Jake's financial situation than they had ever shared with me. Public records showed they were behind on their car payments. Credit check results from the management company revealed maxed-out credit cards. They were struggling much more than they had let on, which made their treatment of me even more baffling. Had they known about my true financial status, they might have welcomed me with genuine warmth, rather than seeing me as a burden. But their financial troubles weren't my concern anymore. Or rather, they were about to become my concern, in a way they never could have anticipated. 3 months after they had kicked me out for being an extra mouth to feed, I became their landlord. The closing on the apartment building happened on a Tuesday morning, a crisp autumn day, with leaves swirling in the breeze. I signed the final papers in Edward's office, feeling a surge of satisfaction as I wrote my name on the line that transferred ownership to New Beginnings Properties, LLC. Congratulations, Rachel, Edward said, shaking my hand. You're now the proud owner of 20 apartment units. Thank you, Edward. And the management company transition is in place? Yes, Apex Management has been notified. They'll take over from the previous company, effective immediately. All the tenants will receive notices about the ownership change and new management contact information by the end of the week. I had carefully selected Apex after interviewing several property management companies. They had an excellent reputation for responsive service and fair but firm enforcement of lease terms. Most importantly, their representative, Diana, had understood my special requirements without asking too many questions. Remember, I told Edward as we parted, no one is to know I'm the owner. All communications go through Apex or you. Of course, your identity is completely protected by the LLC structure. The first phase of my plan went into effect immediately. Diana began responding promptly to all maintenance requests from tenants in the building, except for Unit 3B, Amanda and Jake's apartment. Their requests were consistently lost or delayed due to scheduling issues. When their kitchen faucet began leaking, they waited 2 weeks for a repair that never came. When they complained about the heating being insufficient as the weather turned colder, they received only form emails promising someone would look into it as soon as possible. Meanwhile, other tenants in the building noticed positive changes. The lobby was repainted, security cameras were installed, and the long broken elevator was finally fixed. Common areas were cleaned more regularly, and the outdoor spaces were tidied up with new plantings and seating areas. 1 month into my ownership, phase 2 began. Notices went out to all tenants, informing them of the new ownership and management. The letter also indicated that upon lease renewal, there would be market adjustments to the rental rates to reflect property improvements and current housing market conditions. For most tenants, this meant a modest 5 to 10% increase, reasonable given the improvements being made to the building. For Unit 3B, however, the notice specified a 300% increase, effectively tripling their rent from $1,200 to $3,600 per month. I was having coffee with Susan when Amanda called the management company in a panic. Diana had given me a heads up that the call would be coming, and I asked her to record it for me. "I don't understand," Amanda was saying, her voice tight with stress. "Why is our rent being tripled when everyone else is just getting a small increase?" Ms. Hamilton, the new owner, has reviewed all units individually and determined appropriate market rates based on various factors. Diana replied smoothly, following the script we had prepared. "But we've been good tenants. We've lived here for 5 years, always paid on time." "Our records show 3 late payments in the past year," Diana countered, "and several unresolved maintenance complaints from previous tenants in your unit." "This is ridiculous," Amanda's voice rose in pitch. "We can't afford $3,600 a month. That's more than Jake's entire paycheck." "I understand your concern, but these are the terms the owner has set for your lease renewal. You have 30 days to either accept the new rate or provide notice that you'll be vacating the unit." "I want to speak to the owner directly," Amanda demanded. "I'm afraid the owner conducts all business through our management company. If you'd like to submit a written appeal, I can pass it along, but I can't guarantee a response." After Amanda hung up, I listened to the recording twice, mixed emotions swirling within me. Part of me felt satisfaction hearing the panic in her voice, the same panic I had felt when they told me I had to leave their home. Another part, the mother in me, ached at causing my child distress. But I reminded myself of how easily they had discarded me, how callously they had treated me in my time of grief and vulnerability. Actions had consequences, and it was time Amanda and Jake learned that lesson. The next day, Jake called the management company, his approach more aggressive than Amanda's had been. "This rent increase is illegal," he insisted. "You can't triple someone's rent overnight." "Actually, Mr. Hamilton, we've reviewed the tenant laws in this jurisdiction, and with proper notice, which you have received, the owner is within their rights to set new terms for lease renewal." Diana's voice remained professional, despite Jake's increasing hostility. "Then who is the new owner I want to name? This is personal, and I know it. As I explained to your wife, the owner conducts business through our company. The property is owned by New Beginnings Properties, LLC, which is the entity you would name in any formal dispute." After a few more heated exchanges, Jake demanded a meeting with someone from the management company. Diana agreed to meet them at their apartment the following evening. I spent that day in careful preparation. I selected a conservative suit I knew Amanda had never seen, styled my hair differently than I normally would, and applied makeup more heavily than usual. I wanted to be recognizable when the moment came, but not immediately so. At 6 p.m., I met Diana in front of the building, and we walked together to Unit 3B. My heart pounded as she knocked on the door, but I kept my expression neutral, professional. Amanda opened the door, her face drawn with worry. She didn't recognize me at first, her eyes flickering from Diana to me with confusion. "Mrs. Hamilton, I'm Diana Chen from Apex Management. We spoke on the phone. This is the owner of New Beginnings Properties, who agreed to meet with you personally given your concerns." Amanda's eyes returned to me, narrowing slightly as recognition dawned. Her face paled, and she took a step backward. "Mom," Jake appeared behind her. "What did you say?" Then his eyes found mine, and his jaw literally dropped. "Rachel, what the hell is this?" I smiled pleasantly, as if we were meeting at a social event rather than a confrontation. "Hello, Amanda, Jake. May we come in? I believe we have some business to discuss." They stepped aside mechanically, too shocked to do otherwise. Their apartment looked exactly as it had when I left, though perhaps a bit more cluttered. Lily was nowhere to be seen, probably at a friend's house or after-school activity. "You bought our building," Amanda finally managed her voice barely above a whisper. "New Beginnings Properties purchased this building as an investment opportunity," I replied, maintaining my professional demeanor. "It's been underperforming financially, which necessitates some changes in the rental structure." "Cut the crap, Rachel," Jake snapped, finding his voice. "This is about revenge, isn't it? Because we asked you to move out?" "You didn't ask Jake. You told me I was an extra mouth to feed and gave me a 1-week deadline to leave the home I had been invited to share." I kept my voice calm, but allowed some of my hurt to show. "You treated me like an unwanted houseguest rather than family." "So you're tripling our rent?" Amanda asked, tears welling in her eyes. "Mom, we can't afford that. We'll have to move." "Now you understand how it feels to be forced from your home," I said quietly. "The difference is, I'm giving you a choice." "What choice?" Jake demanded. "You can pay the new rate, which I'm sure would be difficult given your financial situation. Or you can apologize sincerely for how you treated me and commit to treating me with respect going forward. If you choose the latter, we can negotiate a much more reasonable rent increase." They exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "That's blackmail," Jake said, but with less conviction. "It's consequences," I corrected him. "Something you both seem to have forgotten exists in family relationships. When you treat people poorly, especially those who have shown you nothing but love and support, there are repercussions." Amanda sank onto the sofa, her face in her hands. "I can't believe this is happening." I watched her, remembering the little girl who had once run to me with skinned knees and broken toys, trusting me to fix everything. I had loved her unconditionally all her life, never imagining she would cast me aside when I became inconvenient. "The choice is yours," I said, standing to leave. "Diana will need your decision by the end of the week. Either way, the new terms take effect when your lease renews next month." As Diana and I walked to the door, Amanda looked up, her face streaked with tears. "Mom, wait! You can't just leave it like this." I paused, turning back to her. "Why not? Isn't that exactly what you did to me?" The fallout from my revelation was immediate and explosive. Jake called the next day, leaving a voicemail full of threats and accusations. He was going to sue me for harassment, report me to housing authorities, tell everyone what a vindictive person I was. I deleted the message without responding. Amanda texted a series of increasingly desperate messages. "Mom, please talk to us. This isn't fair." "What about Lily? She misses you." I read each one but didn't reply. They needed time to truly understand what they had done and what was at stake. 3 days after our confrontation, they consulted a lawyer. I know this because Edward received a letter inquiring about the legality of the rent increase. He responded with a detailed explanation of tenant law, confirming that with proper notice, the increase was perfectly legal for a lease renewal in a non-rent controlled building. Meanwhile, I focused on my new life. I joined a travel group for seniors and booked my first trip to Europe, something William and I had always planned to do in retirement but never gotten around to. I redecorated my condo, choosing vibrant colors and contemporary furniture that reflected my personality rather than what others expected of a widow in her 60s. I also continued volunteering at the elementary school, finding purpose in helping young children develop a love of reading. The joy on their faces when they mastered a difficult word or understood a story for the first time reminded me of why I had loved teaching for 40 years. My financial situation flourished as well. The apartment building, even with the other 19 units at reasonable rental rates, was turning a healthy profit. Martin helped me diversify my investments further, and my portfolio grew steadily. 5 days after the confrontation, Jake and Amanda requested another meeting. This time, I suggested we meet on neutral ground at a quiet cafe near my condo. When they arrived, I was already seated at a corner table, a pot of tea steaming between 2 cups. Amanda looked tired with dark circles under her eyes. Jake seemed deflated, the aggressive bluster gone from his demeanor. They slid into the seats across from me, neither meeting my gaze at first. "Thank you for meeting us," Amanda began, her voice subdued. "Of course," I replied, pouring tea for each of us. "Have you made a decision?" Jake cleared his throat. "We talked to a lawyer. What you're doing is technically legal." "I'm aware of that." "But it's still wrong," he continued, a flash of the old defiance returning. "Using your money to punish us like this." "Is that how you see it, as punishment?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Not as a natural consequence of how you treated me." Amanda placed a restraining hand on Jake's arm before he could respond. "Mom, we understand you're hurt, and maybe we didn't handle things as sensitively as we could have." "Maybe?" I raised an eyebrow. She sighed. "Okay, we definitely handled it badly, but this response seems extreme." "Does it? You made me homeless, Amanda. You took away my sense of security and family when I was still grieving your father. How is that not extreme?" "You weren't homeless," Jake interjected. "You had money. You could have gotten your own place anytime." "Yes, I could have. Just like you can pay the increased rent or find another apartment. But that's not really the point, is it?" I leaned forward, looking directly into my daughter's eyes. "The point is that families should treat each other with love and respect. You and Jake treated me like a burden, an inconvenience to be discarded when I no longer served your purposes." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "That's not true. We just needed our space back." "You could have discussed it with me respectfully. You could have acknowledged my feelings and worked out a transition plan together. Instead, Jake exploded at me over dinner, called me an extra mouth to feed, and you sat there silently, allowing it to happen." The tears spilled over, running down Amanda's cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have defended you. I should have handled it differently." Her apology seemed genuine, but I had been fooled before. "And you, Jake, are you sorry for how you treated me?" He squirmed uncomfortably, glancing at Amanda before answering. "I was under a lot of stress with work. I shouldn't have blown up like that." It wasn't much of an apology, but it was something. I sat back, considering their words. "What would you like to happen now?" Amanda wiped her eyes with a napkin. "We want things to go back to normal. A reasonable rent a relationship with you. Lily asks about you all the time." "Things can't go back to exactly how they were," I said gently. "But we can move forward. I'll instruct Diana to adjust your rent to match the other units, a 7% increase instead of 300. In return, I expect to be treated with respect as your mother and Lily's grandmother." Relief flooded Amanda's face. "Thank you, Mom. That's more than fair." "There's one more condition," I added. "Family therapy. The 3 of us need to work through what happened with a professional." Jake started to object, but Amanda cut him off. "We'll do it. Whatever it takes to fix this." We spoke for another hour, beginning the long process of rebuilding trust. I learned that Jake's construction company had indeed been struggling with layoffs looming. Amanda had been worried about their finances, but hadn't wanted to burden me with their concerns. Neither had any idea of my true financial situation, assuming I was getting by on just my pension and Social Security. When we parted, there was a tentative truce. Not forgiveness yet, not from either side, but an opening for healing to begin. The following weekend, Amanda brought Lily to my condo for a visit. My granddaughter's excitement at seeing me again was genuine and heartwarming. She ran to me, flinging her arms around my waist, the locket I had given her bouncing against her chest. "Grandma, I missed you so much. Do you like your new house? Can I see my room? Do you have cookies?" Her rapid-fire questions made me laugh, the first real laugh I'd shared with family since the night of Amanda's birthday dinner. Yes to all of those questions, sweetheart. Come on, I'll give you the tour. As Lily explored the condo, exclaiming over the view and the fancy bathroom with its soaking tub, Amanda and I sat in the living room, an awkward silence between us. "Your place is beautiful, Mom," she finally said. "I had no idea you could afford something like this." "There's a lot you don't know about my finances," I replied. "Your father and I were always careful with money, and he left me very well provided for. I never mentioned it because we didn't want money to change our relationship." "And look how that turned out," Amanda said with a sad smile. "If we'd known you were wealthy, Jake would probably have been thrilled to have you stay." The honesty of her statement hurt, but it was also refreshing. Would that have been better to be wanted for my money rather than for myself? She considered this, then shook her head. "No, that would have been worse in a different way." She reached over and took my hand. "I'm sorry, Mom. Really sorry. Not because you turned out to be rich, but because I forgot what family means." In that moment, I felt the first real stirring of forgiveness in my heart. Not complete, not yet, but a beginning. I'm sorry, too, for the way I responded. Buying your building was manipulative even if you deserved a wake-up call. It was kind of badass, actually, Amanda admitted with a small laugh. Remind me never to cross you again. Over the next 6 months, we worked on rebuilding our relationship. The family therapy sessions were difficult at first, with Jake resistant and Amanda defensive, but gradually we began to communicate more honestly. Jake admitted his resentment stemmed partly from his own difficult relationship with his parents. Amanda acknowledged that she had prioritized her marriage over her mother out of fear that Jake might leave her, as her father had left me through death. I came to understand how my grief after William died had frightened Amanda, making her pull away emotionally even as she offered practical help. We all had made mistakes, acted out of fear rather than love, and failed to communicate our true feelings. As for the apartment building, I continued to own it, but I had Apex Management treat Amanda and Jake's unit like any other. They paid fair market rent and received prompt attention to maintenance requests. It was a business relationship alongside our family one, with clear boundaries on both sides. Lily became a regular visitor to my condo, spending one weekend a month with me and occasional afternoons after school. We baked cookies, read books, and took walks in the park below my windows. Through her, I rediscovered the simple joys of life that grief had temporarily hidden from me. In time, Jake and I developed a cautious respect for each other. Never the warm relationship I might have hoped for with a son-in-law, but civil and occasionally even friendly. He had a newfound appreciation for my financial acumen, if nothing else. Amanda and I slowly rebuilt our mother-daughter bond, more mature and honest than before. We acknowledged that we might hurt each other again, but promised to address issues directly rather than letting resentment fester. 1 year after the day, Jake had called me an extra mouth to feed. We celebrated Thanksgiving together in my condo. As we sat around the dining table I had specially purchased for family gatherings, I looked at the faces of my daughter's son-in-law and granddaughter, feeling a complex mixture of love, gratitude, and hard-won wisdom. Life had taught me valuable lessons through this painful experience. I learned the importance of financial independence, especially for women in their later years. I discovered strength. I didn't know I possessed the courage to stand up for my dignity rather than accepting mistreatment. I found that forgiveness is possible but must be accompanied by accountability and changed behavior. Most importantly, I realized that family relationships, like all relationships, require mutual respect and clear boundaries to thrive. Love alone is not enough. It must be paired with actions that demonstrate that love day after day, especially when circumstances are difficult. As I raised my glass for a toast, I caught Amanda's eye across the table. The understanding that passed between us held both the acknowledgement of past pain and the promise of a healthier future. We had been broken, but we were healing, creating something new from the pieces of what was shattered. "To new beginnings," I said, and we all drank to that. What would you do if a family member treated you as an extra mouth to feed? Would you have handled it differently than I did? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if my story resonated with you. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the strongest response to disrespect is simply valuing yourself enough to walk away with your dignity intact.